So as most of you probably know, things are getting beyond busy out at Starbase. There is so much activity and so many optimistic statements coming out of SpaceX, and especially out of everybody who watches this stuff on a daily basis, that really it seems that we've got to be weeks away from an orbital test at most. And I know that I've always been the voice of conservative viewpoints when it comes to this sort of thing, the voice of caution, some would say the voice of negativity, but let's say that I'm wrong. Let's say that Starship does indeed launch sometime in July or August. Let's say they can actually get everything ready that swiftly, get some Starlink satellites on that sucker, or a mass simulation of some kind, and let's say they actually manage to get it to orbit within the next few weeks. What sort of advantages would this represent for SpaceX? What sort of advantages would this represent for spaceflight in general? And how big of a difference would it make if SpaceX didn't actually launch until towards the end of the year, for example, and erred on the side of caution instead of making a breakneck charge for the finish line? Well, that's what we're going to have a quick look at, and in addition to that, we've also got some Relativity Space bonus content. Get ready for that, because you guys killed it on the last video, and the failure of my audio system forced me to leave a little bit of content out. So I'd like to go ahead and wrap up what I said in that video as well. So some very good updates coming to you folks in just a moment. Hello YouTube, I'm the Angry Astronaut, and this is... So here is the most important job that Starship has, Starlink. This is the critical mission for this vessel, and really the prime reason that Elon Musk is probably so eager to get this ship into service. Starlink will not be a profitable service until version 2.0 is deployed, and version 2.0 cannot be deployed by Falcon 9. It requires the vast fairing that Starship has at its disposal. So that is a very powerful reason to move forward as rapidly as possible, because frankly, Starlink is still losing money. However, what does rushing forward mean? What are the potential consequences of that? Well, it's pretty obvious. But before we get to those consequences, let's talk about what SpaceX really has in mind. The orbital launch is a fairly unambitious task, at least as far as an initial test is concerned. It's not even going to complete an entire orbit of the Earth. But then again, since we're talking about the largest rocket in human history, going conservative is probably not a bad idea. So the ship will take off. The booster, of course, will push the orbiter into an orbital path, in some ways suborbital, just barely short of orbital, but nevertheless it's practically the same thing. The booster will then return, although not back to the pad. Instead, it's going to make a soft landing in the water, and then Starship will complete its journey to just off the coast of Hawaii. Okay, all of us have known this, and there are some alternatives. They could also perform some tests of the booster itself with just a mass simulator on top, and then perform a soft landing of the booster in the water, or perhaps even try to return it to the pad in Boca Chica. Or they could do a more cautious launch and dump the orbiter into the Gulf of Mexico instead of trying to take it all the way to Hawaii. There's a lot of ways to skin this cat. However, right now, SpaceX is anticipating a full orbital launch sometime this month, which seems impossible, but let's say they actually give that a try. But before we come to any conclusions as to exactly how this is going to go, we also need to pay attention to what the FAA is saying right now. Quote, they will make a license determination only after SpaceX provides all outstanding information and the agency can fully analyze it, unquote. The PEA is not the last step in this process. The FAA also has to give out a launch license, and that could prove to be very complicated. They might want to analyze all the data from a wet rehearsal, all the data from various static fires, and there's probably going to be a whole bunch of them firing a few engines at a time until eventually they get up to the ridiculous number of 33 engines on the booster. That could also consume a considerable amount of time. But let's say that it actually doesn't. Let's say that they get everything done, wet rehearsals, fueling practice on the booster, on the orbiter, get all the static fires taken care of, all in the space of a few weeks, and then hit the switch. Well, we'll take the best case scenario first. Let's say everything goes swimmingly, that Starship completes its orbital mission, that it manages to re-enter and even performs a soft landing just off the coast of Hawaii. That, of course, will be a massive success. SpaceX will then be able to move forward with Starlink deployment and everything else that they have in mind for Starship several months ahead of time. But keep in mind, we're only talking maybe 4 or 5 months ahead of time, as opposed to perhaps sometime in early 2023 if they really take their time with this process, as I've been talking about this whole time. But if they were to be successful, then yes, they would get about a 4-month jump on the situation, which would have a significant financial benefit for the company. However, what happens if we had an anomaly? Well, I've already talked a lot about that. We're talking a couple of square miles of Boca Chica would be set ablaze at the very least. The force of the explosion would have the potential of blowing out every window in those expensive hotels on South Padre Island that face the launch pad. I've mentioned this way too many times to go through it again. The potential consequences of a serious anomaly are colossal and could put SpaceX behind for at least a year, if not longer. Plus, they would probably be facing a hell of a lot of lawsuits. So here's the point I've been trying to make the entire time. Why does SpaceX really want to push ahead that swiftly and take that kind of risk when they can approach things a lot more rationally and test things a lot more thoroughly before they actually try to launch? And by the way, I believe that this is what Elon has had in mind all along. It's been his strategy from the very beginning. Let's get the engineers working as rapidly as possible, get everybody involved in the process as optimistic as possible about dates. Let's set aggressive expectations to make it clear that Starship needs to get off the ground as rapidly as possible. Nobody needs to be dragging their feet here, but at the same time, he has a realistic view of what's possible and what the potential consequences of failure could be. Far worse than anything his company has ever faced in the past. And this is why I believe that my ass is perfectly safe. I really believe that Vulcan is far more advanced than this ship when it comes to an operational status. But I could be wrong, and if they announce a launch date, I'm going to be in Boca Chica, and by the way, pulling for Starship, hoping against hope that it actually succeeds. Believe me, I don't want to see an anomaly. So the point I'm trying to make here is when the FAA starts asking for a lot more details and a lot more information about the launch before they actually release a launch license, this isn't the government being obstructionist. This isn't the government causing SpaceX problems because of some kind of political agenda. This is the FAA being careful and being responsible with the most powerful rocket in human history, a rocket with twice the thrust of the massive Saturn V, a rocket that could create a small-scale cataclysm in South Texas if anything goes wrong. That's why the FAA needs to be thorough, not because they're standing in SpaceX's way. And SpaceX and Elon are well aware of this, and the timing of this is no accident. They've been proceeding with their whole plan with the FAA according to the availability and the readiness of the technology. They are not intentionally having to drag their heels because of the government. I assure you, that's not what's happening here. And we are going to see some very exciting stuff coming from SpaceX in the near future before that final triumphant moment when they successfully go to orbit. Now, in the meantime, Relativity Space, there's a couple of things that I failed to mention. First of all, Tim Ellis is a man with a vision. This is a guy who wants 1 million people on Mars as badly as Elon Musk does, and wants his company to be an integral part of this process. That's another thing that I find very exciting about this company. Also, their 3D printing strategy will, in theory, allow them to set up Stargate printers all over the planet to produce rockets on site and allow them to launch from many different locations, almost like building star bases on a small scale. This is why I'm so excited about this company, and it all made me sound kind of like a Relativity Space cheerleader, but I like innovation, I like reusability, and that's what this company is all about. However, that being the case, I do have one significant concern about Relativity Space. Well, two, actually. First of all, they haven't launched anything yet, so they still have yet to prove themselves, but also their initial plan, the Terran 1, is fully expendable. There's no reusability built into that rocket whatsoever. Just a lot of 3D printing to keep the cost down, and that's a very good thing, but I don't like the whole idea of engaging in full expendability, that whole strategy, right off the bat. That may not be a very viable solution given the fact that Rocket Lab and Virgin Orbit have some reusability built into their system already, and many of their upcoming competitors, especially the ones in Germany that I mentioned in the video, are going to be doing a lot of the same things. Low-cost materials, low-cost manufacturing, fully expendable to send up small sats. Will Relativity Space be able to compete in an increasingly crowded market in order to get to that magical Terran R moment when they have full reusability? That is by no means assured, and something that everybody needs to keep in mind before we get too excited about these guys. However, given their plans, given the innovation, and given the goal of 100% reusability in the long run, there are lots of reasons to be excited, in my opinion. Many thanks to Lab Padre and the generous content that they provide for this channel. Collaborating with you guys has been wonderful over the years. Please subscribe to that channel and check out their weekly updates as to what's going on at Starbase. And also, please check the description for various ways to support my channel and to keep this content coming. And also, smash that like, hit that subscribe, hit that bell button so you get notified every time one of my videos touches YouTube's surface. And until Relativity Space and SpaceX completely transform spaceflight and the future of the human race, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.